I talked about a while ago about transitions, okay? And not thinking that because you're in a transition that your circumstances are permanent. Understanding that it's just a season in time that God's like taking you through something, right? Or you're going through something, but you're not out of it yet. And I talked about that in one of my other videos. But I want to mention this because sometimes we get stuck in the transition. We get stuck in the period thinking that it's always going to remain or stay this way, and it's not. I talked a little bit about Joseph and you know what happened to him, and you know how he was betrayed and all the different things. But I want to say today that we see in the Bible there are so many different levels of transition. There are so many different periods of transition that God has his people walk through. I mean, if you think about David and you think about David's transition to ascend to the throne, and you think about what it took for him to become the leader that God ordained for him to be. I mean, he was anointed 3 times before he even became king. The first time he was anointed in private by a prophet named Samuel, when another king was already in rulership, already in authority, and already in power. And here comes this prophet saying that now David is going to be king. How can he be king? How can he walk through or go through this transition period where he is about to be king? Okay. But someone else is already king. Someone else is already in that post. Somebody else is already in that position. Somebody else is already holding that spot. Somebody else is already at the top of that ladder. But yet you are telling me that I am going to be king, that I am going to be rulership, governor, owner over this whole thing. But yet there are people at the top that are already in that place. That's the kind of transition that God does. He speaks to a thing before it actually manifests. He speaks to a thing before it actually comes to light. There are things that sometimes in the midst of a transition that he will begin to speak to you, and you won't understand the way that he's taking you, and you will think that this is a cycle or you're perpetually going through something. But your discernment and understanding during this season is going to be vital, because if we don't understand seasons, moments, transitions, timing, right? The sons of Issachar knew the timing. Okay, they knew the timing. Okay, they knew how to tell what time and what season they were in. So I want to tell somebody today that David wasn't aware that he was going to be the king of Israel. When that prophet came and anointed him with oil in private, and Saul was already the king, God is doing something very unique. And he takes things that others can't see. They're in periods of transition, periods of development, periods where they have not gotten to where they're going to be fully. So you can't see fully the mantle that they carry, the mandate, the leadership over their life, because they are in a different transition. But they're going to ascend to a higher level and a higher place. And that's why we have to have the discernment that comes from God, even in our transitions, so that we can see where God is taking us. So when I say that things are going to get better, I am not saying that from a superficial place. I am not saying that from a place of just like, believe it, receive it kind of thing. I'm actually saying this from a place biblically where God shows us that there are constant transitions in his word. And at the end of this, right? At the end of this, God's perfect will is going to be done, right? Because what he started, he will finish. What he started, he will finish. Again, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those that are called, right? Everything works together for the good of those that are called, right? And then, he's faithful to perform his word. right? He's going to perform his word. And then you have Hebrews 4:12, how the word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even of soul and spirit. It is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So the word of God spoken over you, like it was spoken to David through the prophet Samuel, to call in his next season that he could not see, but yet he was being equipped for. You and I are being equipped right now for something great that is coming up ahead. So this transition, these different stages and phases that maybe sometimes can be very confusing, because God, you said this, but I'm not seeing it. God, you spoke to me about this financial provision. I'm not seeing it. You spoke to me about this leadership post, this position, but God, I'm not in that post right now. God, you spoke to me about this territory, but I'm not in that territory right now. I'm still in the midst of it. But God is saying, number one, hold on. Number two, this is just a period of time. If David would have made decisions during these transitions and he wasn't seeing what's up ahead. See, this is another reason why even the people that are in your life, they are in your life for a season. They are in your life for periods of time. Sometimes people are in your life not for your now, for your future. And God sees that. So he begins to position people around you in certain environments, in certain spaces for where you're going. You know, I'm reminded I had taught in Richardson, Texas a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was like, I don't know, maybe it was a month or two ago. But I met someone, you know, I'm almost finished with my degree. I've got like a semester left to finish my degree. And when I went, I met a woman that was like 70 years old, and she was completing her doctorate. And she began to talk to me and speak to me, and we started talking about different things, because the next degree that I wanted to take was in leadership. And because I wanted to continue, I don't want to stop, just stop where I'm at right now. But in speaking to her and in talking to her, I was like, she was getting a doctorate in organizational leadership. And, she told me about the school, the classes, all that stuff. And she's in the same field that I'm in. And I mean, we had a real intensive conversation about this. And we talked about, just some of the hindrances to moving forward sometimes that you encounter as women, sometimes even as Black women, some of the things that you encounter when you are, moving forward and trying to accelerate in these areas, and some of the hindrances that, we face, even as not even just Black women, just as women as a whole, as well, moving into higher levels and industries and different things like that. And it was refreshing to hear somebody that was even more seasoned than I was, that they were pursuing this way, and also too that they understood the challenges, so they could speak to certain things. We could talk about certain things. It was, it's easier to share that way and find commonality. But in that, even in her speaking to me and me knowing, it finally, like, it clicked, and it was like, you know what? People kept for years, over the past, I would say maybe 3 to 4 years, they were calling me Dr. Patricia. They kept saying it over and over again. And they were just like different people that didn't even know each other. First it started, as I ministered in ministry, they kept saying that to me. And I was kind of like, I was like, no, God, I'm not worried about that. I already have my bachelor's, in religious arts. And I was like, I'm good and stuff like that. But not realizing that it wasn't just, a degree religiously, but I have a call in leadership. And through, speaking to her and just, interacting with her, that word that I heard previously and certain things that was spoken to me, prophesied to me, reminded me. And in my spirit, I knew that God was pushing me forward and telling me to continue and go into the doctorate, like go into that, to go into that area, because the field that I'm in, I've been in the field for like 30 years, so I don't need any more like, education towards that, right? So I just have to close that. I'm done with that. But I've always had a passion towards leadership. And that's what I mean when I'm saying, like, you don't see where God is taking you and why, because about, like I said, like 2 years ago, he placed heavily in my spirit to go back to school and different things like that. And now for certain things that are coming up and certain career decisions, like this is now like vital to take on certain things. So I said that to say, again, if we make the decisions and it's temporary, we don't understand that by us not making those decisions now, it affects something later. And also too, by us making decisions as if now is the only thing, we got to do this now. We have the way that we're doing things, the way that we're making decisions, the way that we're like positioning ourselves. Transition, the next phase or the next level of the transition that God has you to go in, because it's at a higher place, a higher level. David understood that. He may not have understood that he was going to be king of all of Israel, but he knew there was a higher place. And see, sometimes we can't see it, but we know what God is speaking. So in those times, number one, we need to stay still. Number two, we can't make permanent decisions in seasons of transition. We have to learn how to navigate transition better and trust God, trust his word, use discernment, stay in the word, stay in prayer, and also identify the people that are in your life, not just for this season, but for the next season. Because even just going there, the connections I made that I would begin to have professionally, just from going, and teaching in that environment. And then again, that was not for right now. Those people and the people that are coming into my life now professionally are even for the next season. And that's why it's really important that we don't judge a thing before the time, because something can look like it's not for now, but it is. It's not for your next, but it is, right? And we have to be able to discern that. So I just wanted to remind somebody and just talk a little bit, just to continue on that video that I posted previously about transition. And I wanted to really just say, it's not about what's happening now. It's about your future. So it's a greater purpose, greater call, especially if you are called with a mantle and mandate into leadership, into different spheres of authority, into different types of influences and things like that. You have to begin to discern the timing and where you are and not make decisions that are just for your now. Because there's something greater that's coming down, and you are being crowned, and you are being thrown, and you are being given territory and authority, and God is using you in a dimension that he's never used you before. So it may not look familiar to you. You may think it's another cycle. You may think it's something else you're going through. The trials, the tests, the constant testing. Why is this happening over here? Why is this falling apart over here? Why is this coming together over here? You're in a transition, and God is taking you and seating you at a throne. And you have to understand that it's not the same thing you've been through before. You didn't go through this way before. So you're going to have to lean and rely and depend on God more than you ever had to depend on him before. He's doing an amazing work in you. He's faithful to complete the work that he started. You may be in transition, and it may be shaky and it may be rocky, but I'm telling you, it's not permanent, and it's not going to stay like this. And you're going to come out, and you're going to be on the other side of it, and you're going to have an understanding of why you went through all the things you went through. And you're going to be grateful for the times that you didn't make hasty or rash decisions, for the times that you sat in the presence of God, for the time that you got into his word to know his will for the season that you're in, so that you can understand how to move and what to do. Because the Bible even talks about impatience and haste, and knowing again how to make better decisions. So I just want to encourage you, it gets better than this. I'm going to say it again. It gets better than this. It gets better than this. It gets better than where you are. It gets better than the circumstances you are facing. It gets better than the job, the position, the business that you have. It gets better than this because you have God that you're partnering with. He can't fail, and he knows where you need to be seated. So hold on. Your change is coming. Make it an amazing day.